this show hoping to raise more awareness around the bright outlooks manufacturing careers have. Join me as I sit down with some of the manufacturing industry's most successful changemakers and learn how they're partnering people with technology. It's time to give people more meaningful work. This is Workforce 4.0.
Hey guys, how are you? Happy Workforce Wednesday. It's so good to be here with you guys again today. And I'm really excited because I have Malachi from Elite Automation with us today. Malachi, hi, how are you?
How are you?
I'm good. It's Workforce Wednesday. It's my favorite day of the week.
There you go.
So how are you?
Doing well. Constantly staying on the road doing something. Really not much time to sit down.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. I like being busy, right? You just gotta be productive and being busy. And you certainly have been very productive and busy, and we'll get into that a little bit here in the show. And if you're joining us live today, if you have any questions for Malachi as we go along in the conversation, if you have any thoughts or comments of your own, please feel free to drop those in the chat, and we'll bring those up during the show today for sure. We'll make sure to get those answered for you. So Malachi, you know I love music.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody told you.
I've heard.
You heard. So love music, and was fortunate to be able to host like kind of a karaoke night at IME South last month.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, since I love music and I think a large part of my audience surely loves music, right?
Yeah.
What would be your go-to karaoke song?
All right. So, I mean, to be honest with you, I hate this about me, but like, I'm not a super music person, right? I'm not like very artistic, I guess. I would say like a karaoke song would be Lose Yourself by Eminem. Although I'm not really an Eminem fan much anymore. My whole genre of music has kind of changed. It's more like, Christian based, like hip hop and stuff like that. Like I really try to, monitor what I put in my ears. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I like Eminem. Yeah. I grew up listening to a lot of Christian music.
Oh, nice.
So in my youth minister, he was really cool. He was just really cool. He was always taking us to like theme parks and like whitewater rafting. And then we did a lot of mission work too. So like Infuge, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's for teens and stuff. And anyway, then he started taking us to all these concerts, like with like
Really?
rock shows, with Christian bands, and it was just a lot of fun. And that's good memories that I have growing up. So that's really cool.
That is cool. I think it's awesome too to like introduce that like kind of funner side of it and like more like relatable side of things. Like I think sometimes it gets left out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, and I say this often and a lot, but it's like, you work hard, you play hard, and you have fun at both, right? I mean,
Yep.
And I think that kind of is very in line with that and kind of set that expectation up for us as well, Absolutely. So very, very cool. So getting a little bit into the conversation today, Elite Automation, you guys, you started your company two years ago. Is that right?
They were about to hit our third legal year here in October.
Awesome. And it just started out as yourself, right?
Yep.
And now you're up to 20 employees?
Yep. I think a little over 20 employees.
That's incredible. I mean, as a business owner, I'm pretty impressed that you're able to grow at that rate that quickly. Mm-hmm. Could you kind of tell us a little bit more about your journey in creating Elite Automation? Sure. And also like, how does culture fit into the company's greater business goals as well?
Yeah. So, for me, it's like I spent my entire career kind of doing what I'm doing now. I worked for a systems integrator for, I believe it was 8 years, building robotic cells, conveyor lines. And my job tasks were in that were a lot of controls. So I did a lot of PLC programming, robot programming, um, and as I grew in my career, I moved on to like project management positions. I moved on to handling some more of the business related tasks and handling quotes and some of the more sales, customer relations type of uh, jobs, but also was still very heavily in the controls and like project management side of things. Um, and for like the last, I think it was 2 years. So it was 2 years from quitting that job. I had decided that for this next year, I'm going to give this company everything I've got. I'm going to devote all my energy and just run this company like it's my own, essentially, right? And after that year, I'd evaluate where we were at. And I actually even had a fitness YouTube channel that I just completely dropped. I said, you know what? We got up to like 1,000 something subscribers on that YouTube channel. I was like, I'm just going to leave this one. I'm going to leave it and I'm going to dedicate everything to industrial automation. And so then I, basically went into spending, 80 hours a week, just either working on the job stuff, educating and whatnot. And I put in all I could for that company, and they did give me the respect and the ability and to kind of maneuver in the way that I felt I needed to. And there was definitely some really good like progress within the company. There was some growth uh, and there was definitely a shift within the company. But then I still realized after that year was up that the company was never going to really be where I needed it to be at. And so I decided I was going to spend one more year just gaining experience, just observing, just learning, like, almost like I'm looking through a window of like what's going on inside the company, right? Um, and try to analyze things so that way, whenever I started my own company, uh, I'd be a little bit more prepared. And a lot of that was basically just the fact that the company growth just wasn't going to be the growth that I really wanted, and the vision that I had seen for my career for a company. Uh, I had the mindset at that point in time that I was okay with spending my entire life with one company, and working for that company and growing it into a very massive company and being an executive in that company. Um, but it just wasn't structured in the right way and would never would be, because going into culture, right? Culture is what drives the company, and the owner of the company and the executives of the company are the ones that are responsible for driving that culture. Um, and to be honest, like that's something that we're actually really focusing on as a company right now. Like over the past uh, maybe 6 months, um, focusing on what is our culture, right? Because the day I quit my 9 to 5 job and started this company, I knew what I wanted us to be, right? I wanted us to be the best. I wanted us to have, the best working environment where people were paid so well, they enjoyed their job so much that they didn't want to quit. The customers just loved like what their experience of working with us. Um, and that way, when people seen us and seen our brand, they're like, oh, that's elite. Like they just like they know like the quality of service and things like that they will get from us, and what it's like to work with us. Um, and to be honest, like some of those things that get lost as you're like trying to grow a company and you're just trying to fill a position, and so you also have to go back onto that and really kind of redefine what that culture was. What was the reason why you started the company, and what was the initial vision of that company?
Absolutely. Yes, because it is easy when you have all of these customer orders and you have demands and you have recruiting needs. It's really easy to lose sight of that vision and really like what your why was to begin with, I love that you're so passionate about this. And I love that, you were aware enough, because that's really impressive to me. I think it's easy to get so caught up in everything that it's hard to take a step back and say, I'm aware, and really try to redirect your efforts into the company culture, and pouring that into it is so inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. And Elite Automation, as a systems integrator, you get to work with all kinds of technology. And what we think about is like being like industry 4.0 technology, right? And I want to ask you some questions more in line with that. But if it's okay with you, I made a video kind of showcasing what Elite Automation does, and how your efforts in working with technology are giving people more meaningful work. Is it okay if I go ahead and show that?
Sure.
What do you
All
think?
right. Very nice.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm glad you approve. I was just feeling that music last night, though. I was just like, yes, it. So I'm glad you approve of that. But yeah, can you kind of walk us through what we saw there a little bit in that video clip, and then relate that to how we're using technology, we're interfacing with this technology already, and how it's improving our lives as humans and gives us more meaningful work.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I like to start off with is that our company slogan is freeing humans one robot at a time. And it really has a very deep meaning that, like, thinking about happiness and what we do with our daily lives and whatnot, we spend so much time at work and at jobs that we don't necessarily like. And I think it's very important that we think about, like, how are we spending our careers? Are we happy with our jobs? And I think robots, they're a tool to change that for like a human society, right? Like if a robot's doing the job that uh, somebody just hates, right? They just hate picking up this part and putting it in this box every single day. It offers that opportunity for, as we grow as a human race, that we uh, offer up jobs that are more, appealing and more joyful. Um, and so robots and stuff have been around for a long time. But even with robots being around as long as they have been, there's still a huge gap in manufacturing for the use of robotics, for the use of automation. There's still a lot of tasks that are very labor intensive, and I when it comes to like industry 4.0 and like IoT of like Internet of Things, um, I stay on the side of there are companies that are ready for it, but there's so many companies that are not even there yet, right? There's so many companies that are just they need to get to the first stage before they really even focus on trying to worry about the lifetime of the sensor, right? Um, and so I think that's definitely a focus in my mind. It's kind of like a different strategy of how, like, I think I'm approaching it a little bit differently to the industry, because like industry is like 4.0, 4.0, 4.0.
Yeah.
And hence the name of your channel, right? 4.0.
Yeah.
But I think that then there's a lot of neglect on the side of, like, people need to do something more than nothing, right, in their automation processes. And then I think that on the other hand, like, we're pushing some of the technologies that are a little bit more innovative, right? A little bit newer technologies. So a couple of those things would be, universal robots, having a collaborative robot, Fanuc CRX robot. These are all somewhat newer robots that weren't necessarily in the industry a few years ago, and really diving into AMR technologies. Like, that's one that we're really pushing is AMRs, because we didn't really have the logistical tool to be able to deploy something as quickly and easily as we can today. Before, it had to be done with an AGV, and it had to be a magnetic strip or a paint strip, and there had to be a lot of engineering time that went into the thought process of like, how are we going to lay this out? How are we going to route it? And then if you decided to change your mind, it was a lot of work, especially if you do mag strips in the ground and you have to cut out concrete and all that. Like, that's a huge undertaking. Whereas now with like AMR technologies, if you decide you don't like this path today, you can change it in 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I've seen that. And I think that that's amazing, like what we're doing to just kind of just make that one little tweak, right? And then you're right. I mean, then the product, if for whatever reason you need to retool your line, or you need to make some allowance for incoming technology as technology changes in the future.
Yeah.
It's really important to be able to have an option where it's not like, okay, well, while we're, completely retooling or we're adding in new technology to the ecosystem, that we have to completely redo this aspect as well, right? I mean, that's huge business advantage there. I do want to take a moment here and get to some of these comments. Everybody's blowing up the comments again. You guys rock. I love you all. And I love Malachi's slogan too. That's a whole other appreciation conversation, fangirl moment there. But I do want to bring up some of these comments. Hank's in the comments. He says, "Good afternoon from me and Junior Board of Directors. Hi, girls. Tell the girls I said hi."
How's it
Hank
going?
has a couple of little girls there with him that like to watch the shows and learn more about like robotics and all the technology. And I just think that's so cool.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome.
Mike Unger says, "So true, Malachi. A strong company culture with a defined purpose and clear values is key to retaining great employees."
Absolutely.
I love that. I absolutely agree with that, Mike. Thank you so much. And then Peter is here. Hey, Peter, how are you? He says, "Totally agree, Malachi. Many of the Industry 4.0 rollouts have been a top-down rollout that is much more conceptual and epic. I think the grassroots bottom-up rollout is of just first of adopting digital technologies that add value step by step are the most effective, especially for those manufacturers that have limited budgets and limited training resources." And I'm sorry I got stuck saying all that, Peter, but I'm so with you on that. That's amazing. Thank you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm impressed that he was able to read through that whole thing. That would have took me like 45 minutes.
I was reading through it, and of course, I'm like blind reading, and I'm like, yes, this, right?
Yeah.
It's like those comments on like the Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and you're like, yes, this. Say it again for those louder in the back.
Yeah.
Love that. Jamie is here too, and Jamie, he says, "I'm glad to know that Malachi is a brother in the Lord." Well, thank you, Jamie. Amen. Yes, but I thought his comment yesterday on AMRs was really interesting on the LinkedIn post. If you guys checked out the LinkedIn post and you saw that. So that's really interesting as well. Thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate that. So getting into kind of building on this conversation of culture, when you think about career paths and all that kind of stuff, there's a big, I don't know whatever the reason is. I don't know, but for whatever reason, the topic of multi-generational workforce is a thing. And, we're always seeing these conversations, right, with, online and elsewhere about the great debate between boomers and millennials and all this, that, and the other. And, I had an epiphany a couple of weeks ago thinking more in depth in this. And I think that what we really need is just like more clear communication outside of all this noise, right? So I just want to ask you, because I know that we're from the millennial generation, right? And when I heard your story, I personally really resonated with some very key themes. One being, I want to do more than what I'm currently doing that adds more value and purpose. And another key theme being, I want to have the chance to build a stronger culture on my own and serve my customers and my community more. And those were key themes of mine when I started my own business. And so I'm thinking maybe there's something to that here.
Yeah.
So can you kind of talk to us a little bit more about not just like the great debate of boomers, millennials, and all the mess and the jargon and all of this, but really let's make the conversation about career goals and projections and how that's important to effectively communicate that to where everybody is kind of understanding of each other's expectations as in their professional growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch real quick on the company side of things. I think that like one reason there is the conflict between companies and this newer generation coming into working is it's been the technology growth, right? Between like me and you sitting that age of you either grew up with the phone or you didn't grow up with the phone, or you grew up with the phone at 15 years old or it was 12 years old, right? And those all actually have a huge impact on your psychology of like, did you have a phone in your hand at 12 years old? The way you think about phones is going to be different than the person that was 16 years old that got their first phone or their first smartphone, especially, right? Because like that was the big thing is whenever you could go on the internet with your phone and actually go to websites and things like that. And so I think that especially with the younger generation where they've grew up with phones, that generation is now hitting the workforce. And so they grew up with these technologies and the technology was moved so fast that the companies have not adapted to that speed, right? They have not taken that technological shift and things are still done the same way that it was done like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and even 10 years ago. But like with the way technology shifted so quick, even 10 years ago is such a long time in the technology era, and also in the psychology and the mindsets of individuals who are now in the workforce. I think they anticipate like a clean workspace. They anticipate there's a completely different working environment, right? And so, yeah, I think that right there is a pretty important topic for the more of the employer side of things because they're in control of that. And then, whenever it comes to like the career side of things, I really think that people should have also a clear path, right? A culture for their own career. What does that look like? What do you really envision for your workspace to be? Are you okay with it being a dirty workspace? Maybe you don't mind. Maybe you're, grew up in the country and you're used to, working on a farm and so that's no big deal to you. You like the hard work, right? But I think you have to discover like whether you like that hard work or you want that clean office environment and you're doing majority of your work through a computer. I've seen individuals they'll go through college and they'll become like a mechanical engineer and they're like I didn't realize there was so much work on a computer, and then they really don't even want to do it. And it's like that's kind of like the wrong time to figure that out. I mean, it's good that they did figure it out, but
that's a terrible time to, I'm with you. That's a terrible time to figure that out. And I think that's why you see so many of us on LinkedIn and especially on this platform and maybe other platforms where we're having, this conversation around, do we all need to go to college?
Yeah.
Do we maybe need to think about these things earlier in life instead of waiting until you're at the age of 17 and 18 and going into college? to really think about these things. And then if we do need to think about these things, right, then how do we get the exposure to the younger generations to show them that there are the options outside of going to college? And I certainly agree. Like Corey Adams was on last week's show, and he was like, he made a very clear point. Look, we still need 4-year degrees. We still need technical degrees. It's not really about that, but the honesty behind it is that there's a lot of the workforce that's not getting these things anyway. And what can we do to, attract that section of the workforce to manufacturing and really understand what their individual needs are and their career expectations are as well.
Yeah.
And I definitely resonate with what you said there on that, because that just reinforces, we need to really be more proactive at having these conversations and being upfront and looking behind the workforce, right, as some generalization, and looking at them from an individual perspective,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Speaking of phones, Daniel Winchester's here. Hi, Daniel. He said, I got my first phone at 21, the Nokia bulletproof brick. I missed that phone. That was a good phone. That was also my first phone.
Yeah. It didn't matter what you did to that thing. It survived.
Right? It really did. And that has since been a problem for me. So great stuff, Daniel. Thank you. Jamie is popping in the chat, and he's got some very good advice for us here. I highly recommend that parents have their kids take a DISC. Yes. Which is a personality assessment to help them figure out how they are wired. It will help with education, career choices. Absolutely. Jamie, mine is not old enough, I don't think, quite yet to take a DISC. But do I think that we should be proactive as parents and trying to figure out our kids, and not saying I just blindly saying, I know my child. I do. I think that that's such important advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I think that one right there, like that right there is like, it definitely is one of the things that stumps me and pushes me to like strive into different areas, like with wanting to create a school. Like it's one of the things that we want to do, and it's because of why are we not doing that right there in high schools or even middle schools, right? To like discover what does somebody want to do. Like, to be honest, like the way I grew up, I'd never even heard of a DISC, so I'm like, oh, that's a thing. You know what I mean? Like, why is that? Why is that not open to the public, where it's very exposed and everybody knows about it? I mean, everybody knows what an SAT is, or an ACT, or your finals at the end of the year, right? But then we don't know something like this that's like life altering.
Absolutely. Yes. I only know what a DISC is because I had to take one for the state of Kentucky. Makes you take one. Gotcha. So for employment, and that's the only reason that I knew what a DISC assessment was either. And I agree with you. And speaking of starting a school, so I love that you were so ambitious anyway. And before the show started, you were actually talking about writing a book, which I'm really excited to read too. Tell me more about this vision of starting a school. I know that you've made that comment several times, and I'm curious I want to be the first to know. So tell me all of the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so one of my thoughts with like the schooling process is like we're waiting too long to get involved in more of a career path, right? So like, why are we going out of high school or college, whatever that deadline is? Really high school, because college you should be kind of directing what your career kind of looks like. But let's say first like high school, like there's no direction really on your career very much. There's very few people, like maybe I would say maybe 5% of people that know like what their career is going to be after college or after high school. And so that's just like a major gap, right? And I think that there's some good programs out there. Like you have the, your tech centers that have like welding, and now some of them are starting to get automation, which is definitely really, really good. And some of those programs are really good and very in line with kind of like my vision of a school and whatnot. And I'm sure that as we navigate that path, it's going to start off by like sponsorships through some of those schools that we really agree with the way the school structure is. We'll probably do like some type of funding or partnershiping with like, devoting some of our employees to going out and visiting and teaching and things like that. But then the thing I really want to do is I want to have, going deeper into it, is more of a community type of environment, right? So where it's a campus style environment where you have your schools, you have your daycare, you have your employment, housing, all under one like campus, right? There's food, restaurants, all those things, right? Because as we've grown as like a society, I think we've also have became too divided, right? Things are on the east side of town or the west side of town or south side of town, right? It's why is it not like right down the street anymore, right? There's no like the community side of things is kind of gone. And I think that a successful company can bring it back, right? Some companies are doing it, right? Like I think Google has somewhat of a campus
Facebook.
Facebook, yes, Facebook. I think they're building a one of these things that I'm kind of talking about like right now. I don't remember where it's at actually, but
it's here.
Is it?
It's here. It's in Tanner. It's which is Athens, Decatur. It's like right down the road. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely be checking it out. Get some ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a really cool robotics park here.
Oh, awesome.
If you're ever in the area. Yeah. So no, I think that's amazing. I think certainly ambitious, but I agree. I think we have to really do something to get more to that community level for sure. Yeah. Well, with that, we're reaching the end of our time here today, unfortunately. Can you tell me and the audience as well if we have any questions for you, if we want to reach out to you in any way, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Probably LinkedIn, primarily LinkedIn, and then through LinkedIn you can probably find any other channel you'd like to communicate on me or communicate with me on. That you can reach out to email if there's something specific. I'm pretty active in my LinkedIn inbox, so that's always a way that I'm reachable. And I also encourage people to reach out, if they have career questions, if they have technical questions for like engineering related things, whatever I can do to help out.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, I have one more question from Peter, if that's okay with you, if I'll show it, because I will go back and reread and try to answer these later. But I think this is a very specific question for you. So let me read over this. Malachi, how much work does it require for you and your employees to hire someone with no experience and train them at work? Also, if you can assume they did not go to school. Good question.
I mean, it definitely depends on the role, but like if I was to go engineering, that'd be really hard. That's kind of actually one of the things that we've been doing as a company culture. We've been, we started off like trying to hire like juniors with like no experience. And we've kind of shifted away from that, at least until we get to what I consider us being more of a structured company. And it's because like you need some of those leaders, right? You need that expert mechanical engineer that can then help your junior with whatever the task is he needs help with, right? Whereas like I've been involved in mechanical engineering, it's not my skill set. I can barely operate a CAD software. So when it comes to bringing on individuals that are like with no experience and no schooling, this is where the education side comes in, where I was talking about like where if you have the school and the apprenticeship, like it needs to start earlier, because it's going to be hard for any employer unless they already have like an internal program to like hire somebody who has zero experience, never operated, let's say a CAD software, and to hire them as a mechanical engineer and train them up. The individuals that we do hire that are like that generally have some other type of value, right? Some other skill set that they've done that might help the company in some other way. Like maybe it's weird. Maybe it's like marketing or something like that, right? Like we do weird things like that in our company that's very different, where we have engineers helping our marketing team and, engineers helping our sales team and things like that.
That
Yeah.
also is weird. I think you have to understand what I think you have to understand. And I think that the normal person that's in that role in marketing is not going to necessarily have that exposure or understanding. If they do, it's very niche.
Yeah.
That's very rare. So I think it's great that you're doing that. I think that's very Workforce 4.0.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I know that we're 5 minutes over our time here today. I apologize. I know you're a super busy guy. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me on Workforce 4.0 today. And thank you to everybody in the comments. You guys are so amazing at supporting this show week after week, and I really do appreciate it. And if anybody wants to reach out to Malachi directly, LinkedIn is the place to find him. So I appreciate you, Malachi. And to everybody else, we will see you next week.
Thank you for having me. You have a good one.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.